The last time I saw my father smile at me, I was 10 years old. Back then, I believed he could solve every problem in the world. He taught me how to ride a bicycle. He never let go of the seat until he knew I could balance on my own. If you ever fall, he said with a proud smile, I'll always be here to help you back up. 4 years. I believed him. I just never imagined that one day, the person who would push me to the ground would be him. 3 years ago, my father stood in the middle of his perfectly polished living room, staring at the adoption papers in my hands. His face slowly turned pale, then red. You can't be serious. His voice wasn't loud. It was worse. It was cold. I've already signed the papers, I replied quietly. He laughed. Not because something was funny, because he couldn't believe what he was hearing. You worked 20 years to become a respected pediatric nurse, and now you're throwing your entire life away for someone else's broken child? My heart sank. Noah wasn't broken. He was 6 years old. He loved dinosaurs. He laughed every time someone made silly animal sounds. He drew the same smiling sun in every picture. He simply happened to have cerebral palsy. That wasn't who he was. It was only one part of his life. I love him, I whispered. You don't even know him. I do. You've known him for 6 months. I've known enough. Father stepped closer. His eyes locked onto mine. If you walk out that door and bring that boy into this family. He paused. You are no longer my daughter. The room became painfully silent. My hands trembled around the folder. I waited. I kept hoping, just hoping, that he'd take those words back. Instead, he folded his arms, waiting for me to change my mind. I didn't. I looked at him one last time. I'm sorry you can't see what I see. Then I walked away. That was the day my father erased me from his life. People often assume adoption begins with paperwork. Doesn't. It begins with heartbreak. Mine started almost a year earlier. Every Tuesday after work, I volunteered at Green Meadows Children's Center. Most children there eventually found families. Some waited a little longer. Others stopped asking. Noah belonged to the second group. The first time I met him, he sat alone by the window with a plastic dinosaur missing one leg. He carefully pushed it across the windowsill. When it fell, he smiled anyway. I walked over. What happened to your dinosaur? It fought a T-Rex. And won. No. He grinned. But he's still trying. I laughed. He laughed too. That was the beginning. Every Tuesday became every Saturday. Soon, I visited almost every day. Noah always asked the same question. Did you come back? Of course. You promised. I always keep my promises. His tiny smile could brighten the darkest day. One rainy afternoon, I found him sitting alone again. He wasn't drawing. He wasn't playing. He simply stared outside. You okay? He nodded. Children often say they're okay when they're hurting. Adults do the same. I sat beside him. After several minutes, he quietly asked, Miss Emily. Yes. Do people not want kids like me? The question hit harder than anything I'd ever heard in the hospital. I swallowed. Why would you think that? He shrugged. I heard someone talking. What did they say? They said families usually want healthy children. He looked down at his small hands. I think maybe I'm too much work. I felt tears burn behind my eyes. I gently took his hand. Listen to me. You are not too much work. You are not a problem. You are a little boy who deserves to be loved. He looked at me carefully. As much as everybody else? No. He frowned. I smiled. More. For the first time that afternoon, he smiled back. That night, I couldn't sleep. His question echoed inside my head. Do people not want kids like me? At work, I cared for children fighting illnesses every day. Some recovered. Some didn't. Every child deserved love. Why should Noah be different? Over the following months, the thought refused to leave me. I researched adoption. I spoke with social workers. I met therapists. I learned about cerebral palsy. I learned about the challenges, the appointments, the surgeries he might need, the physical therapy, the emotional struggles. I also learned something else. Children like Noah often waited years longer to be adopted. Some never found permanent families at all. That reality broke my heart. One evening after another visit, Noah handed me a folded piece of paper. I made this. It was a drawing. A little house. A big yellow sun. A woman holding a small boy's hand. Above them, in crooked letters, he had written, "My happy home." "Who's the lady?" I asked. He smiled shyly. "You." I looked at the drawing for a long moment, then back at him. Something inside me changed forever. That night, I submitted the first adoption application. I wasn't rescuing Noah. If anything, he was saving the parts of my heart I didn't even know were broken. The process took months. Background checks, financial reviews, home inspections, medical evaluations, interviews. Every step tested my patience. But every approval brought me closer to becoming his mother. The day the final papers arrived, Noah ran toward me as fast as his little legs would allow. "Does this mean?" I knelt beside him. "It means." My voice cracked. "I'm officially your mom." He stared at me, almost afraid to believe it. "Forever. Forever." His arms wrapped around my neck. I've never had a forever before. I closed my eyes and silently promised myself he never had to wonder again. He would never question whether someone wanted him. Not while I was alive. I had no idea that making that promise would cost me my own family. The morning Noah officially came home should have been the happiest day of my life. Instead, it became the day I lost the only parent I had left. The adoption agency handed me one final folder. Inside was Noah's birth certificate, his medical records, his therapy schedule, and a single photograph from the day he first arrived at the children's center. He couldn't have been more than 3 years old. His clothes were too big. His shoes didn't match. Someone had written his name on a piece of masking tape and stuck it to his tiny jacket. No favorite toy. No family photo. No one standing beside him. Just a frightened little boy trying not to cry. I carefully slipped the picture back into the folder. "I'll never let you feel alone again," I whispered. Noah smiled. "I know." Our first stop wasn't my apartment. It was the supermarket. Noah had never been allowed to choose his own groceries before. He stood frozen in front of the cereal aisle. "There are so many." I laughed. "There really are." He looked at every colorful box as if he had entered another world. "Can I choose?" "You can choose anything." He stared at me. "Really? Really?" He picked the cheapest one. Not because he liked it, because he thought it would make me spend less. That was the moment I realized how carefully he had learned to take up as little space as possible. I quietly placed his favorite dinosaur cereal into the cart instead. He noticed. "But it's expensive." "So, I don't want you to waste money on me." I knelt beside him. "Listen carefully. You are never a waste." His little lips trembled. Nobody had ever told him that before. The first few weeks weren't easy. Every small thing frightened him. If he accidentally spilled milk, he apologized over and over. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry." One evening he accidentally dropped a glass. It shattered across the kitchen floor. He froze. His breathing became fast. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll clean it. Please don't be mad." And said, I pulled him into a hug. "It's just a glass." He looked confused. "You're not angry?" "No. You won't send me back?" My heart stopped. "Noah." I held his face between my hands. "You don't get returned. You are my son. Forever." For the first time, he cried in my arms. Not because he was scared, because he finally felt safe. 3 weeks later, my father called. His voice sounded unusually calm. "I've been thinking." For a second, hope filled my heart. Maybe he had changed his mind. "Come to dinner tonight. I'd like us to talk." I looked at Noah, who was coloring dinosaurs at the kitchen table. Maybe this was it. Maybe my father just needed time. Maybe he would meet Noah, and everything would be okay. I wanted to believe that so badly. That evening, I drove to my childhood home. Noah wore his favorite blue sweater. He had insisted on bringing a drawing. "It's for Grandpa." The word hit me like sunlight after weeks of rain. Grandpa, maybe, just maybe, could still happen. Father opened the door. He didn't smile. His eyes immediately landed on Noah, then on the walker beside him. His jaw tightened. Neither of them spoke. Finally, Noah stepped forward. Hi. He held out the drawing with both hands. I made this for you. Father didn't even look at it. And said, he looked at me. So this is him. There wasn't warmth in his voice. Only disappointment. I forced a smile. This is Noah. He was excited to meet you. Father remained silent. The silence lasted so long that Noah slowly lowered the picture. Dinner was uncomfortable. Father barely acknowledged Noah. Whenever Noah asked a question, Father answered with one-word replies. Whenever Noah smiled, Father looked away. I kept trying to start conversations. Nothing worked. Then dessert arrived. Father finally spoke. So, how much is all this costing you? I blinked. What? The therapy. The doctors. The equipment. I don't know. Thousands. Probably. He shook his head. What a waste. The room became completely silent. Noah quietly stared at his plate. I felt anger rise inside me. He isn't a waste. I didn't say he was. You just did. Father leaned back. I said the money is. You could have had your own children. You chose someone else's burden. Before I could answer, Noah softly asked, what's a burden? My entire body froze. Father looked directly at him. It means someone people have to carry. Noah looked down. Oh. He didn't say another word. On the drive home, Noah stared out the window. Streetlights reflected across the glass. After several minutes, he quietly asked, did I make your dad sad? I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. No. Then why doesn't he like me? There are questions no parent ever wants to answer. This was one of them. He doesn't know you yet. But he looked at me like everybody else. I couldn't speak, because he was right. Over the next few months, Father stopped calling. Birthdays passed. Nothing. Christmas came. No card. No message. No visit. Friends kept asking, has your father met Noah yet? I'd simply smile. We're working on it. The truth was, there was nothing left to work on. He had already made his choice. One rainy afternoon, my aunt called. Emily. I think you should know. Know what? Your father changed his will. I felt my stomach tighten. He removed you. I closed my eyes. I figured. But that's not all. He told everyone he only had one child now. I couldn't breathe. One child. As if I had never existed. That night, I found Noah sitting in the hallway. He was holding the family photo that used to sit on my bookshelf. The one from years ago. Just me, and my father. He looked up. Can I ask something? Always. If your dad doesn't love me, will you stop loving me too? The question shattered something inside me. I immediately wrapped my arms around him. No. Never. I don't care what anyone else thinks. I chose you. And I'll keep choosing you. Every single day. He buried his face against my shoulder. I love you, Mom. Tears filled my eyes. I love you too. More than you'll ever know. Life slowly settled into a new rhythm. Physical therapy every Monday. Swimming lessons every Wednesday. Hospital appointments. Homework. Movie nights. Birthday cakes. Bedtime stories. The kind of ordinary life I'd once dreamed about. Some days were hard. Some nights Noah's legs hurt so much he couldn't sleep. Sometimes he became frustrated because other children could run while he couldn't. Whenever that happened, I'd remind him of something he once told me. What did your dinosaur do after losing a leg? A tiny smile appeared. He kept trying. Exactly. So will you. He always nodded. Always. Because Noah had something many adults never find. Courage. I thought the hardest chapter of our lives was finally behind us. I couldn't have been more wrong. Exactly 3 years later, at 7:12 on a cold October morning, someone knocked on my front door. When I looked through the peephole, my heart stopped. My father, the man who had erased me from his life, was standing on my porch. His expensive suit was soaked from the rain. His shoulders trembled. And for the first time in my entire life, I saw him crying. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. The man standing outside my front door didn't look anything like the father I remembered. Richard Carter had always looked untouchable. His suits were perfectly pressed. His hair was always neat. His posture demanded respect. But the man on my porch looked broken. His expensive coat was soaked from the rain. His shoulders sagged. His eyes were red, swollen, and filled with the kind of pain no amount of money could hide. He raised a trembling hand and knocked again. I slowly unlocked the door. "What are you doing here?" My voice sounded colder than I intended. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Instead, tears rolled down his face. I'm so sorry. 3 years. 3 birthdays. 3 Christmases. 3 years without a single phone call. And now, the first words he spoke were, "I'm sorry." I folded my arms. "You've had 3 years. What changed?" Before he could answer, small footsteps echoed behind me. "Mom." Noah stood in the hallway wearing dinosaur pajamas. His hair was still messy from sleep. He looked at the stranger standing outside, then at me. "Who's that?" I hesitated. Finally, I answered quietly, "That's my father." Noah's eyes widened. "The grandpa." The word struck Richard like a knife. His lips trembled. He looked at Noah. Really looked at him. For what felt like the first time. Noah wasn't the frightened little boy Richard had rejected 3 years ago. He had grown taller. His confidence had grown. His walker was covered with colorful dinosaur stickers. He smiled despite the awkward silence. "Hi." Richard tried to speak. Nothing came out. Noah waved anyway. "Hi." I turned back toward my father. "What do you want?" He swallowed hard. "Please. Can I come inside?" Everything inside me screamed, no. But another part of me, the part that still remembered the father who taught me to ride a bicycle, stepped aside. 5 minutes. No more. He nodded gratefully. The house felt unusually quiet. Richard slowly walked into the living room. His eyes wandered across family photographs covering the walls. Pictures of Noah learning to swim. Noah blowing out birthday candles. Noah holding up school certificates with the biggest smile imaginable. Then he noticed something else. There wasn't a single photograph of him. Not one. Because there hadn't been one memory worth framing. Noah proudly pointed toward a picture. "I won a kindness award." Richard looked at it for a long moment. "You did?" Noah nodded enthusiastically. "My teacher says being kind is more important than being the smartest." Richard lowered his eyes. "I think your teacher is right." Noah suddenly looked at me. "Mom, I'm hungry." I smiled. "Go make your dinosaur pancakes." He laughed. "You always burn the tail." "I do not." "You do." For the first time, Richard heard genuine laughter inside my home. It wasn't loud. It wasn't forced. It was peaceful. The kind of peace he had chosen to walk away from. When Noah disappeared into the kitchen, I looked back at my father. "You have exactly 4 minutes left." He nodded, then reached into his briefcase. "I brought something." He carefully placed a thick envelope on the coffee table. "I don't want your money." "It isn't money." "Then what is it?" "My medical records." I frowned. "What?" His voice barely rose above a whisper. "I have advanced heart failure." Silence. The words didn't feel real. "I've already had 2 heart attacks. The doctors. They've told me there's nothing more they can do." I stared at him. The strongest man I had ever known. Looked terrified. "I probably don't have much time left." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to feel sympathy. Another part remembered every birthday he had ignored. Every holiday. Every tear Noah had cried. Every lonely night. "You didn't come because you're dying." "I know. You came because you're afraid." He lowered his head. "Yes. For the first time in my life. I'm afraid." He slowly looked around the room. When the cardiologist gave me the news, I went home. My house felt empty. I realized I had no one to call. His voice cracked. I spent my whole life building a business. I thought success meant everything. But when I needed family, I had destroyed mine. I remained silent. He continued. I tried visiting old friends. They were busy. I called business partners. They sent flowers. No one stayed. Then he looked directly into my eyes. I remembered you. I drove past your house 3 different times. I couldn't knock. I didn't deserve forgiveness. He took a deep breath. So I left. But yesterday, I saw something. What? I was sitting outside your neighborhood. When I watched Noah, my heart skipped. What about him? Richard smiled through tears. A little girl dropped her books. Before anyone else moved, Noah struggled across the sidewalk to help her. He could barely carry his own backpack, but he carried hers anyway. I realized the child I called a burden had become the kindest person I'd ever seen. The room fell silent. I spent 3 years judging him, without ever knowing him. His voice broke completely, and I have regretted it every single day. That moment, Noah returned carrying 3 slightly burnt pancakes. He proudly placed them on the table. I made breakfast. Richard stared at the uneven pancakes. They look wonderful. Noah grinned. They're dinosaur-shaped. I can tell. They're T-Rexes. I thought so. For a few seconds, the room almost felt normal. Then Noah looked at Richard. Were you crying? Richard nodded honestly. Yes. Did someone hurt you? The question caught him completely off guard. He slowly whispered, I hurt myself. Noah looked confused. How? Richard struggled to answer. Finally he said, I pushed away people who loved me. Noah thought quietly, then asked the one question neither of us expected. Do you need a hug? I looked at Noah in disbelief. After everything, after the rejection, after the pain, that was his first instinct. Kindness. Richard completely broke down. He covered his face with both hands. I don't deserve one. Noah slowly walked over. He wrapped his small arms around the man who had once refused to even look at him. It's okay. My mom says everybody gets another chance when they're really sorry. Tears streamed down my father's face. For the first time in years, he hugged his grandson, not because they shared blood, but because one little boy had shown him what family really meant. As I watched them, I realized something. Forgiveness wasn't easy. It didn't erase the past, but sometime, it opened the door to a future none of us expected. I just didn't know that an unexpected visitor arriving later that afternoon was about to reveal a secret Richard had kept hidden for more than 30 years. Noah was still sitting beside Richard, happily explaining why dinosaurs would make terrible pets. Because they would eat all the furniture. Richard laughed. A real laugh. It was the first genuine smile I'd seen on his face in years. Then, the doorbell rang. None of us expected visitors. I opened the door. A woman in her late 60s stood there holding a small leather folder. Emily Carter? Yes. My name is Margaret Ellis. I worked with your mother. My heart skipped. My mother. She nodded. I know this is unexpected, but your father finally agreed it was time. Richard slowly stood up. His face turned white. You came. Margaret looked at him. You promised her. The room suddenly felt colder. I looked from one to the other. What is going on? Richard lowered his eyes. There is something I've hidden from you your entire life. Margaret carefully opened the worn leather folder. Inside were old photographs, letters, hospital records, and a faded envelope with my name written in handwriting I immediately recognized. My mother's. She had died when I was 12. I'd spent 21 years wishing I could hear her voice one more time. My hand shook as I picked up the envelope. Richard whispered, She wanted you to have that when you became a mother. I couldn't breathe. What? I couldn't do it. I was ashamed. I slowly unfolded the letter. The paper had yellowed with age. But my mother's words were still clear. My sweet Emily, if you're reading this, it means you've become the caring woman I always believed you would be. There's something your father and I never wanted you to forget. Love is never measured by blood. It's measured by the people you choose to stand beside when life becomes difficult. If one day a child who feels unwanted finds their way into your heart, don't be afraid to choose them. The world needs more people who choose love over fear. Promise me you'll never let anyone convince you otherwise. Tears blurred the page. I looked at Richard. You knew. He nodded. Every word. Then why? His shoulders collapsed. Because after your mother died, I became someone she never would have recognized. Richard slowly sat back down. I buried myself in work. I convinced myself emotions made people weak. I thought success could replace family. He looked toward Noah. So when you adopted him, I didn't see a child. I saw responsibility, medical bills, difficulty, everything except what mattered. His voice cracked. I became exactly the kind of man your mother warned me not to become. Margaret quietly added, your mother volunteered at children's hospitals every weekend. I blinked. What? Richard nodded. She especially loved spending time with children who had disabilities. I stared at him. I never knew that. I never told you. Why? Because every reminder of her hurt too much. For years, I believed I was honoring my mother's memory by becoming a pediatric nurse. Now I realize, without even knowing it, I had followed her heart. Noah quietly walked over. Mom, did Grandma know kids like me? I smiled through tears. I think she would have loved you. He smiled back. I wish I could have met her. So do I. Richard slowly reached into his briefcase once more. This is the second reason I came. He placed another folder on the table. I've changed my will. I looked at it without touching it. I don't want your money. I know. I don't deserve to buy forgiveness. This isn't about that. I've created a foundation. I frowned. A foundation? He nodded. For children with physical disabilities. Noah inspired it. The foundation will pay for therapy, medical equipment, wheelchairs, and adoptive families who can't afford treatment. I stared at him in silence. My company, my investments, my vacation homes. I spent my whole life building wealth. I'd rather spend whatever time I have left building something that matters. For the first time, I believed him. Not because of the money, because of the tears, because pride had disappeared. All that remained was regret. Real regret. Richard slowly turned toward Noah. I owe you something. Noah tilted his head. What? A proper apology. He knelt carefully despite his aching body. I'm sorry. I judged you before I knew you. I made you feel unwanted. You didn't deserve that. You deserved a grandfather. I failed you. Noah listened quietly, then smiled. My mom says saying sorry is brave. Richard laughed softly. Your mom is very wise. No. Noah grinned. Grandma told her. Everyone laughed through their tears. The following weeks were unlike anything I expected. Richard began coming to Noah's therapy sessions. Not to interfere. Just to watch. He learned how Noah practiced walking. He learned how exhausting physical therapy could be. He celebrated every tiny improvement. The first time Noah walked 10 steps without stopping, Richard cried harder than anyone in the room. Months later, the Carter Family Foundation officially opened. Children filled the rehabilitation center. Parents who couldn't afford treatment finally had hope. Richard insisted on greeting every family personally. Whenever reporters asked why he started the foundation, he always gave the same answer. I spent too many years believing family was something you inherited. A little boy taught me it's something you choose. One autumn afternoon, Noah and Richard sat together on a park bench. Leaves drifted through the air. Richard looked unusually tired. He smiled gently. You know, I used to think I was teaching everyone else how to live. Noah looked up. Were you? Richard chuckled. No. You taught me. What? How to love without conditions. Noah thought for a moment. That's easy. It is. Yeah. You just don't stop. Richard wiped away another tear. I wish I'd learned that sooner. Richard passed away peacefully the following spring. Not in a hospital surrounded by strangers, but at home, with family, the family he almost lost forever. During the memorial service, people expected speeches about his business achievements. Instead, Noah walked slowly to the front, holding the same dinosaur with one missing leg. He looked at everyone, then quietly said, "My grandpa told me people can change." I think he was right. He wasn't perfect, but he kept trying. Just like my dinosaur. The room fell completely silent. I looked up toward the sky and thought about something my mother had written years earlier. Love is never measured by blood. It's measured by the people you choose every single day. And in the end, that choice changed all of our lives.